Chelsea, yes, getting the job done, but they don't make it pretty, do they?
Well, they didn't dominate the play. They had 59% possession, as you just saw there. But you couldn't say they dominated the opposition. They gave the ball away quite cheaply in midfield at times. It was a fairly decent game in terms of the counter-attacks. Benfica had their chances in the first half and didn't make the most of them. Benfica, I thought, defended quite well for long periods. The player that really stood out was Neto out on the right-hand side. He cut on his left foot. He got 3 or 4 good crosses. George hardly had a touch of the ball. Garnacho was okay at best. And Caicedo and Fernandes, did their bit in midfield. But Chelsea at the moment have got 1 or 2 problems. They at times pass it too slowly. They give it away cheaply in bad areas. And they have problems defensively. Not today, because Benfica didn't quite have enough to break them down. They got a lot of crosses into the box. They had 1 or 2 good moments, in the first half, but didn't then carry it on in the second half. So it was a very competitive game. It was a very even game. Chelsea won by their own goal, and that was about it, really.
Craig, I know we talked about this a couple of seasons, a season or 2 ago, about Arsenal and when they were accumulating a lot of cards and if discipline was an issue there. Now we're seeing Chelsea once again in another game being reduced to 10 men. Is this becoming a problem for Enzo Maresca?
Well, let's look at it's not been over-aggressive. Well, that one was maybe a silly high boot. I'm trying to think back. The Brighton game, what was the Brighton sending off again? Do we remember?
Chalobah for Brighton and then Sanchez against Man United.
They gave the ball. That's right. They gave the ball away. It got pinched.
Chalobah's weekend.
And Chalobah was denying a clear goal-scoring opportunity. That was just bad play. He was put in a position. And the Robert Sanchez one was bad decision-making. Getting himself in the wrong position so early in a game. And so I wouldn't say that's bad discipline. The high boot is a little bit. He only come on in 60 minutes. Joao Pedro, so he was only just on the field. So to get 2 bookings, and particularly when you're on a yellow, to raise your boot as high as that, whether there's contact or not, is just crazy. So I don't think, to go back to the point about Arsenal, the Arsenal ones from the centre halves were, I think, over-aggression, getting involved with the referee, dissent, all these kind of things that you can, Leandro Trossard kicking the ball away, then moaning about. That's something that you can stop. What you can't stop is when you're put in a bad position by your team making a mistake, which Sanchez was, to a point, which Chalobah was to a point. So that's not something I would worry about too much. But if my players getting sent off for dissent or 2-footed tackles or stuff like that on a more regular basis, that's something that you need to address. Obviously, it's not brilliant when you keep going down to 10 men. And if they do it at the weekend against Liverpool, they're going to be in trouble. But it is 3 red cards in 4 games if you include the cup tie against Lincoln.
If you look at all these red cards individually and isolate them, as Craig said, it's not really. No, it's not. It's situations that have occurred that are kind of out with the person's control. Again, you could say Joao Pedro shouldn't be. But Joao Pedro only had eyes for the ball, raised his foot too high. He didn't make any contact. He's not kicked somebody in the face. So in isolation, they're really not what you would say disciplinary problems, as opposed to the Arsenal ones where it's kicking the ball away and getting in the ref's face. That's a completely different ballgame.
Was it not as well? There was a Trossard one at Man City. There was the Declan Rice little toe poke at home, which was very, it seemed very silly, but it was the correct decision. And then there was, I think, Ben White at Wolves, might have been the year before, where he had 2 yellows within 10 seconds or so in the right back position. So, it's stuff like that as a manager, you've got to say, listen, I get it. It's an emotional game, and sometimes you want to have a moan at the ref, and sometimes you're frustrated. But in this day and age in particular, you just don't want to be getting red cards for silly little petulant things. And Arsenal were pretty bad for it for a year or 2. They seem to have cleaned that up. 3 reds for Chelsea in the space of, 10 days or so is far from ideal.
Now, I want to get to a certain topic on the show that I cannot wait to hear Craig talk about. But first, make sure to tune into ESPN FC tomorrow. The boys will be breaking down all of the Champions League action, including, I suppose we could say, the match of the week, which is Barcelona up against PSG. All right, Craig. Now we know that.
Hold on, Stevie's worse than me on this one.
Let me get everyone's opinion on this, because we know Mikel Arteta loves trying new, interesting methods to give Arsenal an edge, and his latest effort involves fighter pilots. Let me tell you what he had to say. He says, I can wake up one day and say my process on match day is not good enough. Why are we communicating to the players to actually how the message is delivered? I don't like it. So who's the best at that? So the British fighter planes, for example, I will get in touch with those guys, how they communicate, because that is life and death. I'm sure they don't use 20 phrases or 20 words if there is one word. Don't say, nah, the wind is coming this way, now you have to turn left, because boom, dead. So it will just be one word. So Mikel Arteta there working hard to try and improve his communication with players to maybe not use as many words as some of us like to hear.
Surely that just involves engaging your brain. I mean, I'm not being funny, but
at least he's trying new things.
If I walked into a bar and it was only me and him in the bar, right, and he was sat at
You
one...
buying him a drink?
No, I'd go and sit at the other end. As far away as I could, because I wouldn't want to listen to that kind of nonsense. I mean, it's nobody pulling him to the side.
Aye.
It's none of his coaches pulling him to the side and going, hey, do you know how stupid this sounds? Do you know how stupid you're
Not
making
if they want to keep their job.
Well, you don't want people that just kiss your backside. You want somebody to say, listen, come on. I mean, what's he talking about? How to communicate? I mean, all you need to communicate is a brain and to be able to articulate it. I don't need to talk to a fighter pilot to know, to keep it concise, to send a message to a player. I mean, this goes back to the documentary when, and listen, he's doing a good job. He's doing a good job. They have a very good side and they have probably as good a chance as ever of winning the league. It's not going to be easy, but they're in a very good position in terms of the squad. So I get all that, but really? I mean, really? Do we need this nonsense?
No, it's not even funny anymore. It's just stupid and it's getting embarrassing. And the one thing when you know when you do it to begin with, stuff like this, it's original. And the players will kind of have a little laugh and a snigger, but they'll listen to you and the rest of it. But when you start doing it consistently,
you start questioning everything.
You're just turning people off. Nobody's listening to you. Nobody's listening to you. That's all he's doing. And 100%, I'm with Craig. One of his coaching staff needs to turn and say, Gaffer, I think we need to leave this now.
Robert, what do you think on this? Because I know you're always a fan of new, innovative ways of communicating.
Well, absolutely. I think you have to admire coaches or players who want to improve themselves or pundits who want to improve themselves. But you don't go telling everybody what you're doing and coming out with stupid ideas and stupid sense. And I think he contradicted himself there because he said, if you have to use 20 words when you can only use one, you're doing the wrong thing. Well, he used about 50 words there when he could have just used a couple. It's complete bonkers. And somebody at some point, as the two guys said, I've got to say to him, you're not doing yourself any favours. You're only doing this for your own benefit, and it's not working. You know, the players aren't going to take any notice of that. Any decent player would say, what the hell is he talking about? All you want to know as a footballer, what do you want me to do? What are the tactics? How do you want me to perform week in, week out? And what's my role in the team? That's all you want from a coach and a manager, not this sort of rubbish.
I think the only line you need to say to Arteta is, have a day off. That's all you need.
Do you know what the other thing is as well? I don't want to go on about this, but you know, there's quite a lot of problems around the world. I mean, we're talking about RAF fighter pilots here.
Yeah.
Do you think they've got nothing better to do in the day, apart from their training and keeping the country safe and all that, to go in and speak to Mikel Arteta?
They may love it though. They may feel honoured that Mikel Arteta is calling them. Maybe a quiet day off.
We get a day off. That's why.
We are in sitcom territory here with this guy. Honestly, with some. I mean, this comes off the back of the documentary with all the light bulb stuff where you're sitting going, really?
And the pickpockets.
What was the pickpockets?
Because
I didn't watch the documentary.
He brought some pickpockets to the training ground to take things from the players to teach them that they need to always be alert.
But we've just had the Man City game where he went to the press conference and he got his cell phone and he says, every Tom, Dick and Harry in the country basically has been ringing me up telling me how good we were. Presidents, chief executives, you know, managers, coaches, they're all ringing him. They're all ringing him to tell him how great he is and Arsenal were. So that was, we're off and running at the races there with that one. And now, off the back of a big win against Newcastle, a big late win, you just think, hey, let's just get on the training ground and keep this momentum going. No. RAF fighter pilots, you couldn't make it up.
You should have reminded him what happened after played You'll Never Walk Alone during the training sessions. How did that one work out for Arsenal?
Not very well.
Not very well.
Do you ever think, he is overthinking this scenario.
Again, have a day off. That's all he needs to do, completely.